Okay, so now I'm going to do part two. Um, so for part two, I assume you get the tar file that you already got, and then you untar it, and then you can already take type of make, and there is a it will generate HW3 client, HW3 server, and you can actually do the tests like part one to see how it works. So I already provide you the code in this pair of the program to implement the first part. I asked you to do three part, but this is the first part. And the first part only implement the distance function, which I need to create a shadow flag and to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to move to my code to go to my directory. I'm first going to homework 3 first. Okay, so homework 3 this is the file you actually got. This is a JSON you actually got. So I always started with JSON, and this JSON very generic. It just say one call, and I call the call of the one I already gave you is Ethia 36B homework 3, and that call is just implement the get distance. So now I'm going to what? Hold on. Am I in the right place? Ah, here. Okay. So now I'm actually going to tell you the whole thing. Okay, the whole thing, which means that for you to complete the homework assignment number 3, that what's the JSON file looks like. So let's try to compare. This was the code I sent you, and this is I expanded to include all the calls. So now you can see I create one call called get distance. That's essentially the one I already implement, but now I change the name to be get distance. And then I have the second call called conflict of interest. I create another call here, conflict of interest. And then I have another call called operator equal equal. But have you noticed that operator equal equal, my parameter is a little bit different, because in the previous call, I always have this 4 thing, the action, and then have an owner, ESID, host URL, class ID, object ID. But for the second call, because operator equal equal, I have a 2 argument. And the other argument in the function definition is called a person. And that's why I have another 4 called a person owner VSID, a person host URL, class ID, a person object ID. So I create another one, but with more parameter for this shadow object and the real object to communicate, because they need that. Okay. By the way, there's multiple ways to define JSON. I could have put this a person stuff into this argument JSON string, which means that I have to do encoding and decoding on both sides, which I try to simplify things at least to show you the first simpler implementation. That's why I explicitly make it in the JSON file. Okay. And then number 4, I have another function called get VSID. So the first step you should do in the homework assignment number 2, part 2, sorry, is that you have to take this one, the one I gave you, ECF 36B HW3, into 4 function specification. Instead of 1 function specification, I have a 4 function as specification. Get distance, conflict of interest, operator equal equal, and the get VSID, which is where's my PowerPoint? Let me get my PowerPoint to show you the other one, which is show in this picture. Slide. Come on, 7. I hope this is 7. Which is shown in this picture. Yeah, in this picture, you see that I have operator equal equal, get VSID, and conflict of interest. And of course, I have get distance. I already removed from this slide because this is just representing step, sorry, the part 2 for the second and third steps. Okay. All right. So, so the first step is getting the JSON. Let me actually summarize here what I talk about, so you have some more information to follow later. Not this one. I want to insert another side. Okay, the first one is modify ECF36B.json. Okay, that's you need to modify that. Okay, so after you modify that, then you're going to start to create classes. Okay, so the most important thing, let's worry about shadow person first. So I actually have a new file called shadow person. So I can show you the code. How I define shadow person.h. In fact, it's very similar to shadow person. Let me kill this one. I want to terminate. Sorry about that. If you compare what I did with shadow fly and shadow person, they're very similar. So this is my shadow fly, and it's include transaction.h because if you look at my class hierarchy, shadow fly inherit from fly, but fly is defined in transaction.h because I kind of put this two in one single .h file. So shadow fly include this one. So similar shadow person and person. If you take a look at this, this is my definition of shadow person. I mean, this is just change this from fly to person, change this from transaction H to person.h, and then here's shadow person instead of shadow fly. If you look at this slide, it's a shadow fly, public fly, and this one says shadow person, public person, right? And then you have one constructor, two function. I mean, of course, I should also tell you, in the file I send you, you only got this two line, constructor and a function, but now I have another function called bool, conflict of interest, right? And for this one, I also have the same constructor, but instead of shadow fly, I call it shadow person. Again, with 4 parameter, 4 argument with a string, because why is 4? Because the core object has this 4. Okay, this 4 always correspond to this 4. Okay, and then I define this two function because I need operator equal equal, and I need the get VSID. So, but important thing is just like a shadow fly, I define this as a virtual function. So you have to also define this as a virtual function. Okay, so this is the step first. You essentially realize this picture here. All right. Any quick question? Okay, so but the origin person.h file have not declared the operator equal equal and get VSID are virtual. They're not defined as virtual. So now I'm going to go back to this one to tell you what you need to do first. Okay, the second step I just show you is create shadow person.h, right? Okay, so I'm going to go through the third step. The third step is the following, is that you need to go to person.h to make some changes as well. So everything else are exactly the same except The only thing I change is this way, is this one. By the way, I might have changed this one as well. I forgot how let me check very quickly. What did I have for person.h here? This is no. This is yeah, this is the one, but what was the before? Oh, I killed it. All right. So hold on. I want to show you a contrast. So person.h, this is the one you receive. Okay, it's different. I changed 3 things here. Just show you this. So this is the original one. Notice here, there are 2 constructor, and operator equal is not a virtual function. Get VSID is not a virtual function. So what I did here is I add this one because I want to, it works precisely with the shadow object. So I create a new constructor, which has this 4 parameter. And then I make this 2 function, this 2 member become virtual because they will be inherited by shadow. So I have to change the 3 things in my person.h. Okay, so now I can go here, modify.
Excuse me?
Sure, go ahead.
Professor?
Yes,
So
I'm
I saw you create a constructor person which take the 6 parameter. What's that for?
Yeah, that's 4 thing, right? Because
No, there's one have a 6 parameter.
no, I know. There are 4 things, not 3 things. I thank you for pointing that out. Let me say that what are the 4 things. I said there are 3 things I changes. One is introduce this one, have this 2, but also I changed this one as well. Yeah, I mean that's good. That's good. I should explain that. So what I did is
I mean, oh yeah.
okay, because when I first create this demo program, I didn't need to worry about shadow person. So I didn't, even though I inherit this from core, but I didn't actually set the 4 parameter in the core. So what I have, I send it to you is kind of not complete because before that I don't have this shadow person, so I don't have a person, but the person inherit from core. But when you inherit from the core, core has this 4 parameter. My constructor need to initialize this 4, but my previous previous constructor under person.h doesn't have that. So that's why when I need to make it work with shadow person, I introduce a new constructor, but also enhance an existing constructor as well. So that's why, in order for me to set this 4 variable. Let me show you this, how this works. The reason all this is, now we have to look at, why don't I look at person.cpp to tell you what I did, okay? So in person.cpp, okay, this was, let me see, can I go back a little bit? Okay, this is a constructor. Wait a minute, what happened? Hold on. Let me do this very quickly. Okay, this was a constructor before. You see that this constructor has nothing, try to configure the core object. Okay, so it only have a person, empty constructor, person, just set the this person's name and VSID, but not anything to the core object feature. But let's look at the new person.cpp. The new person.cpp works this way. Okay, you see, this session is quite different from this session. Okay, this one only have this piece of code, so I have to expand, and the expansion is really just for the core. So for example, the first one has a 4-parameter. This 4-parameter is host URL, owner, VSID, class ID, and the object ID. The only thing is that I actually call this core. This is in inheritance. I actually, the constructor really just fit in this 4-parameter to call the constructor to my parent class, which is core. That's how we actually did this part, okay? And also similar, this one I didn't change it, and this one is 6-parameter version. So I did the same thing, right? I actually have this 4-parameter to call the base class core, and then I have the same result as before. Okay, so you see that I did some expansion here in order for the class to work both with shadow person. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to tell you what I did here. I modify, I always just say a few things. Under person.h and CPP, I change both of them, okay? All right, so now you have a person.h and CPP, you're ready to work with person, shadow person.cpp. So now you have to look at shadow person.cpp. Okay, so now I have shadow person.cpp. All right, so let's actually compare shadow person.cpp with shadow fly.cpp. They should be very similar as well. So this is a shadow fly.cpp that you already get a code. And this is shadow person. You can see that there looks really the same. It's just changing person, the name person to the, the name fly to the SERP CPP. So let me actually go through this very quickly. Shadow person.h is the same, and then you have this JSON RPC stuff. You have to include HW3 client.h, which was generated from the JSON RPC stuff using the new ECF36B JSON file that I just showed you earlier. And then you have your constructor. So let's just compare one constructor. The constructor of a JSON fly is taking 1, 2, 3, 4 parameter. It's called flight, and also call this 4-parameter. And then this one is just any display message. If you look at JSON person, is identical. In fact, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 is calling person this 1, 2, 3, 4, because now you know why I have to add that constructor in person, because I want the shadow person be able to call that base class constructor. So basically, core is the base class for class person, and class person is the base for class shadow person. And in order for me to initialize the 4-parameter in the core, like what I show you here, I have to pass it through. That's why I have to pass the 4-parameter to person, and the person will pass that 4-parameter to the core. That's the inheritance you have to worry about, okay? All right, so that's how you implement the constructor. You have to make sure the constructor is working okay. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how I implement the operator equal, okay? So you can see that the operator equal is shadow person operator equal. It take a parameter, a person, and let me actually just tell you that what I did for blah, 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 for fly.cpp. Let's tell you that how similar it is. So this is the code for shadow fly get distance. Okay, that's essentially what you have in your homework assignment in the HW3 tar file. That's the structure code of shadow fly get distance. And what I did is I create a client, my client, and also I create a JSON value that's going to be returned. And I just call my client get distance. And then putting 6 parameter, which is going to be defined in HW3 client.h and client.cpp. And the 6 parameter, and then get my result. The only thing come back is that because get distance is a double, I convert that result into double, okay, to return it. So let's see how I did my shadow operator. It's the same thing. I did this 3-line, just this identical code, okay? And now this function, instead of call my client get distance, I'm actually calling my client operator equal. And this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 10 parameters. Why? Because remember, in my JSON, new JSON file, I have 8 of them. It always have a 2, but then this has 8. Let me just show you 36B JSON. And this is get distance. This is conflict with interest. And this is operator equal. It has 10 parameter here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I believe. Yeah. So that's why you have, no, 11, sorry. 10, yeah, it has 10. That's why here you have 10 of them. And here you have only 6 of them is because get distance in that JSON file. So this match with your JSON. And the other difference is that when you get the result, I actually, because you return a Boolean, so I basically just say the result is as bool, okay? This is how you return it, as double as bool. And then essentially you're complete this function. So that's why I shared this with student earlier last week. I said, try to mimic what it does with shadow flight, and then try to mimic to shadow person. And instead of having operator equal, of course, I have another one, which is shadow person get VSID, which you can see is really similar to that as well. The structure is the same. It's controlled by the ECF36B JSON file. Okay. Any question?
Yeah, for the operator equal the JSON file, why we need 10 object,
Okay.
since I saw 4 of them are repeated.
No, it's not repeated. It's different. Let me actually tell you why. Let me go to person.cpp. Okay, let's look at operator equal here. Take a look at operator equal. It's actually taking 2-person object. 2-person object. One is this, is the object. The other one is a person. So there are 2 objects we're talking about, right?
Okay.
And
I
each
see.
of the objects should have 4. Because they are 2 different, they could be 2 different objects. So each object will need to have 4 of this. That's why you need to have 8 of them. That's the reason. Yeah.
Okay. So for the, if we want to update the server part, so we basically just implement within the my homework 3 server function, right?
Yes, that's correct.
We don't need to create a new function. Okay.
Yeah, you have to go there to check. I'm going to show you HW3 client, HW3 server, so you can actually get some better idea. Okay.
Okay. Also, we need to use a get VSID before we use operator use operator equal.
That's
in
correct.
The shadow, right?
Right. That's correct. That's why we also have a get VSID become virtual function, and also get VSID implemented in the JSON file, because we need that. Yeah. That's why we have this picture. You need to have both operator equal and get VSID. settle. I mean, get VSID become a very essential part to this. Yeah, that's a reason.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now you saw how I changed. Let me actually go back to here. Now I have to get this done. So now I have to create shadow person dot, yeah, I'm okay, dot CPP. And I just want to say follow the example of shadow fly dot H and CPP. Okay, so just make it a little bit smaller so I can. Okay, so now here we are. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so now we're going to look at the next step. We're going to do is look at to create or modify. In fact, you should modify because I already gave you an example. Modify HW3 client CPP. Okay, and this part surprisingly is fairly simple. HW3 client, HW server is the one that's going to need major piece of work. But HW3 client is actually very simple. So let me actually show you earlier what the HWC client looks like. So this was the code for HW3 client, the one I show you. It was just creating 3 fly, right? And shadow fly and then get distance. That's the only thing I call, right? It's in fact, the version you receive probably simpler than this because I make some modification during the demo time earlier last week, okay? So let's look at the version that in order to test. This is essentially a test program for me to see whether shadow object really works. So let me show you my HW3. By the way, this part, I don't have a standard answer, so you can do whatever you want, but this is just my answer. Sorry, my part of that. Let me see. So what I did is the same, but what I actually started to do is I create 3 different person. All of them are shadow person. I create 3 shadow person, and then I create 3 shadow flight using this object. And then I did a few things. I test whether equal work, whether SP1 is equal to SP2. This, because I have a 3 person, I'm just compare, are they the same person? And then I just create 3 fly. I just check whether any of them have a conflict of interest. So you can see that when I initialize this 6 object, I didn't initialize anything else than the core object. It's always the 4 parameter. So I only create this as a shadow to connect the core object on the other side. But the only thing I want you to pay special attention is shadow person number 3. So shadow person number 3, the port number is actually different from the other 2. So what I have in my demo scenario, I have a HW3 client, I have a HW3 server, but then I create another one called HW3 another. So it means that I actually separate my object. Some of them are under HW3 server, but some of them, especially the real object for shadow person number 3, I put it on a separate server called HW3 another, which make things more interesting for me to play around, okay? So you can test it. In fact, initially I just tested like 1 or 2 scenario, see how it works, and then I gradually expanding to have fun. You can create more object, more flight, and then put it in a different server and have them talk to each other, okay? So that's HW3 client. It should be pretty straightforward, okay? So now I did this. Now the major part I will call it HW3 server.cpp. I'm going to first talk about this and then show you the demo because the another HW3, another HW3 server are almost identical. Okay, almost identical. I just want to show you one, give you some high-level idea. Very flip through the what I did. Server. Let me. Before I do that, do I need to do anything else? Let me actually look at my own window. Oh, one thing is important before I move forward is I have to change the make file. Okay, let me say modify the make file. It's important because now I did a lot of new things, so I have to change the make file. But I want to tell you what you need to change the make file. So everything else is the same, but here I create the difference between the make file I send you and now. I have a shadow. I kind of put this both the shadow into a macro, so make the code to be simpler. But the idea is just how you need to have that dependency in the make. By the way, I'm still finishing the make video to give you a tutorial about make file, which is very useful for your career and for your software development environment knowledge. And what I did, another one in the make file before, is this the make file? Okay, so this is the old make file. The make file you have, I actually separate this called link LD. LD is for linking. The linking, I have a linking different library. You see, I have a JSON CPP library, micro HTTP library. I have all this server library, I have a client library. That's why I kind of have a line which include that to be easier to say a macro. By the way, you don't have to use macro. You can just retype everything. I'm just trying to be more structured. That's why I did this. I have a one line for the server, SV. I have a one line for client. If you look at this below, when I compile HW3 server, I use SV because it need to link with those library. The client, I use client because it link to those library. But in the more complicated scenario, every server could be a client. For example, I could host a real object which represent I'm a server because there's another shadow object want to come to me, but I'm a server. Say I'm hosting a real flight object, but one of the person that's involved in the flight object is a shadow in another machine. So now I'm a client as well. So now you're both server and a client. So why don't I just include both server and client's library together? Now I just call it LD flags. So I basically just link all the library with both the -L JSON CPP server and the -L CPP client. I include both in the linker LD flag macro. So you can see now is when I have, now I have this three line. So I told you I have a three, now I have a HW3 client, HW3 server, I have HW3 another. And then when I link this three program together, this is the really link code for this three rule. And I just say LD flags and just one macro to include all the client server perspective. It will work, okay? So you have to look at, when you look at this code, it's just all this with a $sign, parenthesis. This is just macro being defined earlier. So just make, otherwise I'm going to include the whole thing. You will have to write the whole thing much longer, just like a homework assignment number 3. If you want to compile, you can see what they did is that they actually compile, and it's pretty long. If it's not even one line is enough, and they just have this things with all the -L. Those are what I call the $sign parenthesis LD flags. I basically just specify the macro instead of type it up every time. And so that's actually, I think, is a better for software maintenance. Okay. So because you introduced the new shadow person, so that's why now you have to introduce another one line called shadow person.o, because you need to compile shadow person CPP. It's just duplicate from shadow fly. So that's why I'm saying that you really can use shadow fly as a template to modify, to duplicate in a lot of places, not just in .h.cpp file, but also in Makefile as well. And then you can make sure that you have a correct compiling environment to do that. Okay. Okay, so we have the Makefile is done. So now I'm going to look at HW3 server.cpp. This could be major pieces for you to worry, but even that I would say is also you can replicate from HW3 server.cpp I send you. So let me actually first look at what you had. This is the version you already received, .cpp. By the way, .h file, you don't need to worry about that. Let me take a look at .h file. Okay, let me take a look at .h file, because this was your original HW3 server.h file. This was generated, and you can see that over here it has only one function, which is called ECS 36B HW3. It has another function, but you don't need to worry about that. This is just this. They have a two function to deal with that, but this function really called this function. If you see ECS 36B HW3I, it's basically just called this function here. Okay, so it's really you only have a one function generated. So now let's take a look how it's generated, because now remember we changed the JSON file. It has 4. So HW3 server.cpp. No, not CPP. I want to show you the H first. What? Oh, because why? Because I haven't generated. You see, this is the line. It actually generates this file. Okay, the JSON RPC stub. Okay, now we can take a look. Now this is just identical to this one. It's the format looks the same, except this one has 4 functions. Get distance here. Sorry, get distance, conflict of interest, operator equal, and get VSID. And the thing is that each of this, whatever get VSID I, is going to call get VSID. So now I have this 4 line represent this 4 function. Okay, get distance, conflict of interest, operator equal, get VSID. And it has all the parameter. Get distance has 6 of them. Conflict of interest has 6. Equal has 10. Get VSID has 6. Now you should have some idea where those 6 and 10 come from. But be careful, is that they actually arrange the order about this parameter differently than you had on your JSON file, which this ordering is important because the ordering of a client and the server must match. And now the thing, let me just compare over here. This was the one I sent you, only have a 1, right? Also similar for this, now I have 4 of them over here. So now why I show you this before I show you HW3 server.cpp, now the job you have is actually implement this 4 function inside the HW3 server.cpp. The way we already implement 1 function in the HW3.cpp for the original one. So look at this is HW3 server.h has only 1 function for you to implement. That's why you come over here to look at, this is the original one, server HW3 server.cpp. I mean, look at this. This is the same, but here is only function I implement is this function here, member function, with the 6 parameters. So my job now implement the server is actually changing this function. So that's why I do if this class is equal to fly 0021 002. This is all my logic. And then this part is just basically doing the socket related stuff and handling the JSON value. And then to call the function, where did I call the function? Yeah, I call the function here. This is, I call the real function. And then I get the result back, okay? And then of course I have the main of the server. I create a bunch of objects. This is a real object I created. And then I basically show the demo. This was the one I sent you earlier. But let's look at what I did for .cpp. I mean, it looks really similar, just like this. But one thing I do want to say is I add a few things for the client stuff as well, because now this one is acting both the server and the client. Okay, any question? Go ahead.
Professor Wu?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Melissa.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Melissa, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
You're just kind of choppy.
Oh, okay. Maybe my internet is not not very stable. But don't worry. What I said, I am recording. I'm going to upload this video and audio because I'm doing local recording. I think everything I said will be clean, very clean on my video, on my recorded video. Okay.
Okay. I had a question about the server file you just showed us.
The one I gave you, or the one I'm showing you right now?
The one you gave us.
Okay, let me go back here.
When
Yeah.
in the member function, when you call get distance, why do you use the arrow instead of f2 dot get distance?
That's a good question. Let me tell you why. Because I need to handle the object, local object over here, right? In my object. And this function was designed for a regular remote procedure call. It's not designed for handling the object-oriented remote procedure call. Therefore, this 6 parameter doesn't give me anything about object pointer or a reference to an object. You can see that this 6 parameter is just give me the parameter of the call themselves. And therefore, I have a way to call the object. So I have a 2 way to do it. One way is just define a bunch of global object. Define a bunch of global object, which I to be honest with you, I could have done that, but I didn't. So instead, what I did is I used pointer. I used the pointer, which is a C pointer, that to the fly object. So you can see I defined this too, fly star F2, slide star F3. And then what I did is because there are pointers, so when I call this function, I have to use this convention, F2 point to get distance. And the way, how do I set the pointer is actually here. What I did here is that I create a fly object called fly2 and the fly object called fly3. And in my main function, I set the address of the fly2 and fly3 to F2 and F3. So because it's actually adding an address symbol before the fly2 and fly3, so I cannot use dot convention. I have to use hyphen greater than convention. So that is the because what F2 and F3, what they are, that I have to use that convention to call the function. But Melissa, let me show you what I did right now, which might clarify that situation a little bit differently, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Are you with me? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I just showed you was the one you got. So now this is the new one. I use exactly the same convention, but I just changed the name, okay? So I'm still have this 4 function, right? So now I have to implement each of the function. And you can see that now I, instead of F1, F2, now I have a 5 object I have with a pointer. I call it person 1, person 2, fly 1, 2, and 3, okay? And because person number 3 is actually on the other host, I think. So for this implementation, I also do the same trick. I testing for the object ID and flight. And then when I call it, I'm actually just use F1 PTR to get distance. And this function is, just show you, this function is, sorry, I get. So different function has a different thing. So this function is get distance, right? So that's why I'm actually calling get distance. But this function is conflict of interest. Then I'm going to call conflict of interest on the fly. And then this function is operator equal. And then what I did is doing a overload the operator. Okay, I'm actually doing something very, very bizarre because I know I only have like a two person I need to compare. So basically I check every single case, which one should check. This pointer equal to this, or this equal to this, this equal to this, equal to this. Of course, I should have done a more generic way to deal with that. But for homework assignment number 3, if you're doing what I'm doing, you're fine, okay? Because the rest is just mechanically, how do I build a program that I can handle 1 million objects instead of 3 objects. That's just scalability issue we need to deal with. But to show the concept that this is sufficient. And finally, the last one was get VSID. I'm copying my code everywhere and just say if this object is this, I just call P1 pointer get VSID. Okay, you see that I'm just building this here and there. And then I create, the things I change is because I move one of the person to another object, so I don't have a lion queen here. So what I have a lion queen is I have a shadow person SP2. I have a shadow person SP2 represent the P2, but what I did here is that instead of P1, P2, F1, F3, they're all real object, but P2, you see what I did here? SP2 was a shadow person, but I actually casting was a person. I treat it as a real person. I put a pointer into P2 PTR. So when P2 PTR was compared, it will actually trigger the shadow object at SP2 and go to HW3 another, which is a third server to actually be able to get the real result. So in this sense that this program HW3 server are both client and the server at the same time. Okay. And the rest of them is really, we did a lot of replication. You take a look at the code I sent you, and that format can be replicated. Okay. All right. Any question? So let me do that. I think I cover everything over here. Yeah, go ahead. I thought somebody wanted to ask a question.
Do you have to the shadow person to
You mean like in server.h and server.cpp, or like the client and server?
The client and server.
So the client is what's really calling the function. Like the client is like, instead of you putting it into your command line, it's like the client is saying, okay, do this for me. And then the client talks to the server. So it doesn't rely on like direct user input. It's just like the client is your user input.
Okay. Because in my mind, there's like 4 different.
My
Like-
Professor Wu, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Hey, I'm sorry, I just came back. Sorry, thank you for letting me know. Let me share my screen again. Go ahead, continue your discussion. I think I hear you're answering each other's question, which is great. Yeah, any question for me at this moment, or you're in the middle of discussion, something else?
I think Melissa has an issue about the client side.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So across client and across the client and server files, from my understanding, there's 4 different person variables being defined, but I get kind of confused because I thought like throughout this whole program we're only comparing 2.
Melissa, can you repeat your question? What do you mean by you're only comparing 2? So so let me show you my client program, which then we can see what's going on, okay? Let me show you this again. Client.cpp. Let me make it a little bit smaller so I can fit the screen. Okay, so this is my client program. Let me redo it again. Okay, this is my client program. So what I'm really implementing is this picture. What I'm really implementing is this picture, that the client is doing something, and the object, I mean, this client is completely shadow, and it's going to get its help from a remote object. So this one is HW3 server. Just get my text box. This one is /HW3 server. And this one is HW3 another. Okay, so when the client call access any object, that all the objects are on HW3 server, but one of the objects is actually on HW3 another. So for that, I have a shadow object here. I have all the shadow object to access this one, but this one has a shadow object to access here as well. So that's why if you look at this code, that I have shadow SP1, shadow SP2, shadow SP3, and then I have shadow fly SF1, SF2, SF3, and then I'm just comparing. Now I have all the object, I can perform all the operator. This one is operator equal, right? Overloaded between 2 person, and conf of interest is also a function. So this is what I did from the client side. It's just I implement 4 functions in order to support all the scenario here. So that's my explanation about the client program. So Melissa, which part you think that you will need me to clarify?
I think I'm just confused on how the persons defined in your client program differ from the persons defined in the server program.
Okay, that's an excellent question. Let's actually compare. Okay, let's compare. I think that's a very good question. I think not just you, but other student will have the same issue. So let me actually look at my HW3 server.cpp. Okay, so let's look at how I define the person. I define at the end. Okay, here is how I define a person. This is a real person, right? I define this person this is the person P1, right? And object ID 005. And this is how I define the person here as P1, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
so one thing, take a look at this is, let's not look at the URL first. Look at the other three. This really uniquely identify the object in your own program. This is the VSID. This is the class name. This is object ID, right?
Yeah.
And over here, you see that this three actually match. This three match.
Mhm.
And then these two are the parameter of the person. So this is the way I create a real person on the HW3 server. And this is a real person because I actually really call, number one, I invoke person instead of here is just shadow person. Okay, I create a shadow person object here, but here I create a real person here. And the other thing is that this one has real parameter, has a name and VSID. Okay, by the way, this VSID is different from this VSID. This VSID is a VSID for this person, but this VSID is a VSID for the owner of this particular object. They're different. I just want to let you know they're different. Okay. And the thing is that for if this is a real object, then this part doesn't matter, because this is a real object. You're not going to go somewhere else to grab the URL, so you don't have to worry about that. But this URL matter, because this URL provide me where do I get this object. Okay, number one, if this is a shadow person, if any of my virtual function get called, I need to get help from somewhere else. And I need to use this URL to allow me to go somewhere else. And how do I do that? If you remember let me go to because this is a person, I'm going to show you shadow person. Shadow person.h. Let's go for my constructor, not constructor, what? No, oh, okay, sorry, not HCPP. To go to CPP, if you go to you go to this operator equal, you can see that, how do I do that? The first thing I did is I tried to get the HTTP client, right? But the HTTP client, what I have is I got this host URL. I actually use this to configure such that my HTTP client know which server he's connecting to. So this host URL is actually related to, not this one, but it will take, because this is the shadow, it will pick from this one here. It will pick from this one to connect to the server to HW3 server. So that's why to create, number one is really when your object create, whether you create a real person or you create a shadow person. If it's a real person, don't worry, you're just handling the incoming call. If it's a shadow person, what you have is you really need this 4 pieces of information for you to go out to another program to get whatever result you have. So once you create the shadow person, so now this might make sense, right? Because now you create a shadow person SP1. So when you call SP1 is equal SP2, that's going to trigger the operator equal, which is the shadow version of operator equal. So it's going to then, this function will get called. This function will get to call. Will get call, and then this is going to use the URL to set up an HTTP client, and then it's going to call my client operator equal. It's going to call using the JSON RPC to call this parameter to the other side. Is that helpful?
Yeah. So when you set up a client and a server and you want to do like automatic updates, for instance, you're assuming that the client already has given information about the object defined in the server.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Okay,
Otherwise,
so yeah, that's important. I thank you for asking that question explicitly. Yes, we have to have a way to know that in advance. If you don't know that, then we cannot. It's just like today we're using web, right? Using web, you have to know the URL. I have to give you the URL, or you have some tool using like Google to find the URL. Then you can get that. So essentially, URL is just I mean, I can actually encode all this for information in the URL, right? So it's really just that's why I gave you both the client side and the server side, because you control both sides. You know what object you create in the server side. You just need to mimicking that in the client side.
okay, thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, good, good. Any other question?
Yeah, I had a question about like a really specific error, and I wasn't sure how to fix it.
Sure.
So I went through like most of what you just showed us, and I was working on shadow person first. And so basically I changed, like I included a new portion in the JSON file, and then I generated the new server.h file, and then I copy and pasted the code for the new function. Like it gave me a new function for like the equal, right?
Right.
And then I copy and pasted that into server.cpp so I could use it.
Right.
And then it gave me this error that was like, cannot declare variable s to be of abstract type my homework 3 server, which was like code at the very, I posted about it on Piazza, so like there's like a better picture on there that you could see. But like I mean, I looked into it online, and like the things that people were saying, I couldn't find a place where like my code was deviating from itself.
Okay,
So I
sorry,
wasn't,
I missed that on the Piazza.
no worries. Yeah, it
Let,
was
let
just
me
like,
let me check on that Piazza.
mhm.
This one? Which one is this?
It's like,
This one, or is
yeah, that one. But
okay?
you can't see the picture.
No, sure. I will. I'll go to Piazza. Would you mind if I show it here?
No, I don't mind. Yeah, it's fine. I don't know if anyone else had this problem, but it was just
This
like,
this is your error, right?
yeah.
Okay. Wow, this is very small. I have to get closer. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
No
Oh, no.
problem. No problem. I had this before. I actually
Yeah.
saw this before. Uh,
Yeah.
I
So I
have
was,
no. I have this before. It's it's not a difficult problem to deal with.
okay.
Let me see that. Let me try to remember how I fix this problem. Okay. Um, can you try? Let me. I mean, I'm just guessing because you use a reference sign there. You use const std string ampersand there, right? I
Yeah.
thought I might have to remove that. Let me check my code. Okay. Let me
Okay.
check my code. This is HW3 server, right?
Yeah.
Let me actually check. I think I did something like that. And then I encounter exactly the message you got. Like there's a mystery. I have to use my experience to take care of that and try different things. No, it's not that's not a problem. I actually have the same thing here.
Yeah.
I have the same thing here. So it shouldn't be that problem. I try to remember what I did. Just not too long ago.
Was
Let
it
me
in the
try to.
H file or the CPP file?
It might be in CPP file. No, it cannot be in CPP because I don't. We're not supposed to change the No, it's a CPP file. Yeah, this is a CPP file.
Yeah.
I try to remember what I did. Let me see your error message again.
Yeah.
This is
So like I didn't even add anything to the CPP file yet. So I just tried to compile, like I just tried to make everything. So the only thing that changed was the JSON file, which only changed the .h files. And then that
yeah.
like even
Okay.
without using it.
There might be something. No, I actually see the problem here. Okay, if you look at the equal persons, okay, if you look at that equal person function, right?
Yeah.
Did you change your JSON file already? Let equal person has 10 parameter or 6 parameter?
Right now it has 6.
Okay, you have 6.
It's like basically the exact same as get distance. I was just working on it like step by step.
If you have 6.
I mean, this is like I feel like not a lot of people have this problem. So like, wait,
No,
actually, no.
I have that problem. I have that problem already. Yeah. So this is CPP. So wait a minute. This is CPP. Yeah, this is CPP. I had this problem. It's not too hard to figure out. Can you do me a favor? Okay, because I did this before, I can help you very quickly. Can you send me 2 files? One is your JSON file.
Yeah.
The second one is your HW3 server.cpp. Send me these 2 files in the email. I think I look at the whole thing. It might be easier for me to see.
Okay. Let me.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll just email that to you real quick.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think this problem is not. I think I can help you. Yeah. No problem. Okay, so I'm going to do one thing before I close today's demo. I just want to make clean and make again. And now I'm going to run this program with three sessions and just tell you what's happening, okay? So this one is completed with this one. This one's not. So I have 2 directory. One is my real completion. One is just the one I send you. So I want to just show you how my program runs. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to run the server. So the 2 sides of server doesn't matter which one I go first. So this one is HW3, another. Okay, I'm running another, and I'm running HW3 server. Okay, I'm running both the another and server. They're both server. This 2 representing this 2. Okay, this is running this 2. Now I'm going to run the HW3 client. Okay, so I'm basically getting all the result, and I'm getting a lot of false and 1 truth because there is only one of the flag is COI, which is the SF3, which is the COI. Okay, I got a lot of results. Let's see what other things are getting called. Let's first look at another. The another actually get 1, 2, 3, 4. They got 4 call. And HW, this is HW3 server. Let me move up a little bit. So if you see this, means that there's somebody calling this function for get VSID. But if you see this portion, it's actually getting VSID from the another. Okay, so it actually called 1, 2, 3 times, but also there's a 1 more time was introduced by the client program. So I'm going to just go back to the program to see why you will see those message, because it's better to see the from the client side. Okay, I want to go smaller. Okay, so let's look at this part. So the first program, the first thing run is I create a shadow person. And by the way, this one is in 83, 84. So that's why it's going to call get VSID. So this get VSID is going to call the server. And this get VSID is also going to get the server because this one. But this get VSID, the third one, shadow person SP3, the URL is 8385. So this get VSID is actually going to get the third one. So that's why you will get the first get VSID call from the client directly. All right. So now you're actually going to get the call the shadow. You get distance. That's okay. That doesn't involve anything with 8384 is not involved the third HW3 another. So you get distance, you get distance, just like we done this before. So that's why you will have, if I move up a little bit. Oh, I didn't even print the get distance function from the server side, so that's okay. Okay, so now let's actually look at this part. So now I'm actually going to do if SP1 is equal to SP2. So SP1 and SP2 are both on the HW3 server. So the first SP1 SP2 is not going to involve the third server. But the second one is that if SP1 is equal to SP2, and this is interesting because this is actually going to invoke the first time. It's actually going to do the get VSID. But the second get VSID, it realized, sorry. The second get VSID, it realized that the SP3 is actually from the other side. So it will actually call this one. It will actually call this one, and which means that you'll get the second get VSID from this one is actually from the HW3 server. And then we come here to see the line that you're going to do conflict of interest. So conflict of interest is SF1, conflict of interest SF2, SF3. But now let's look at what are those three flights. So I have to just kill this. We have to see who they are. Those three flight object. Must be at the end. Yeah, so flight one is SP2 and the P1. Flight two is P1 and SP2. Okay, it's again. And flight three is P1 and P1. So both flight one and flight two involve across the boundary because SP2 is actually another. P1 is in the server. Right now we're on the server. So that's why you're going to see when the client says conflict of interest, all three of them is going to forward it to the server. But both this call is going to invoke HW3 another because both of them involve SP3 in this sense, but it's actually SP2. So basically SP2 is the same as SP3 in the client. Okay, so that's why these two are actually going to invoke. That's why you have two more get VSID coming in from those two calls. But then finally you have this SF3 conflict of interest, but SF3 is just the flight F3 is just 2P1, which doesn't involve the third one. Okay, so let me just use a simple example to see that there is, depending on how you call them, that sometimes only HW3 server was involved, but sometimes it will involve both HW3 server and HW3 another. Okay, so that's why this is a very simple example. You can use different way to show how you can coordinate 3 server to work on these things. Okay,
I have a quick question about the diagram.
sure.
So it looks like there's a person object, that small pink circle that is supposedly on homework 3, another server.
Mhm.
And then we have to create that homework 3, another server on our own. That's fine. But then if we have to create it, how is that person object in there for to create it? Like when we I'm kind of confused on that.
Okay. By the way, HW3 server.cpp is very similar to HW3 another.cpp.
Okay.
They're almost identical. So let me actually show you my version of HW3 another.cpp. Look at this. This is just like HW3 server. It has all the function implemented, except at the end, if you look at this, where did I do that? No, I missed one part. Except at the end, I set 8385. I set the server port to the 8385.
Okay. And that's
and-
why that person object is there?
No, that's not the reason person object is here. Yes, it means the server can only be contact with port number 8385 instead of 83. But this statement is actually here, the P2, the Lion Queen. The Lion Queen is actually created here. I kind of include this one here. I didn't delete it because I don't use it. In fact, I should remove this one as well. Because
So the Lion Queen isn't in the other server, right?
okay, but this is HW3 another. I have this Lion Queen created here. But if I look at HW3 server.cpp, it doesn't have that Lion Queen as a real object. You see that? I already commented that out.
Okay.
I commented out by using the same object ID, person ID, and owner ID, and just say shadow person SP2. That's what I did. And then the same thing happened, by the way, I should have shown you this earlier. Shadow person SP2 is actually equal to this person. Shadow person, they're actually the same. Yeah, they're both shadow person. SP2, SP3 is going to this one, but this one, yeah, as well. In fact, I believe if you actually use this one, SP2, it should also trigger another as well, because the real object for this one is actually in another. There's only one real object for this particular combination of owner ID, class name, and the object ID. There's only one copy, which is HW3 another. Any other question? I think Manu, you mute yourself.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll look at this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to close this right now, and then I'm going to produce a video and put it online so you can see today's step by step. Okay.
I have one more question.
Sure, Parker.
So in the server part, we need to have a server, homework 3 server, get VS ID, conflict of interest, and operator equal, right? We should
Right.
have 3.
Also get distance, 4 of them.
So we should have 4 JSON value homework 3 server, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I
And
mean, this is
um,
defined by the
so we need to
JSON.
Yeah, so we need to deliver the. So we need to parse the JSON 4 times, right? Or only 1 times?
Say it again. What do you mean by parse JSON?
Parse,
for-
like, I mean, so are we gonna include another three within the get distance, or we should separate?
I separate. I separate. I actually, because I define 4 different functions in my JSON file, I have a 4 separate function defined. Because I have a 4, let me just repeat it differently. Because I changed my JSON file, the code will have 4 functions I need to implement.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because you define this way, then the way I define, if you define 100, then you have 100 function to implement. I define 4, that's why I
Oh,
have
I
to
see.
implement 4. Yeah. So we are driven by the JSON file that you created.
I see.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any last minute question? Last second question?
Yeah, Professor.
Yeah.
You were saying that you could do one-on-one with me because the install root thing wasn't working.
Yeah, I have to do that later. Right now, I have to do something else. But can you Facebook message me or email me?
I can email
Yeah.
you. We can schedule. an
Okay.
appointment.
All right.
All right.
Sure. That's fine. All right. All right. So, all right. And I'm going to unshare my screen. I'm going to end the meeting, and then let me just stop recording.